All right, hold on tight, because this deep dive is taking us straight into the witching hour. We're going to try to unpack, centuries of history and folklore and fascination surrounding witches and witchcraft.
And how a figure that used to be so dreaded has become, well, almost a symbol of empowerment now.
Right, like it's amazing how that transformation happened. From ancient beliefs to modern practices, it's a wild ride. But don't worry, we've brewed up a potent concoction of sources for you. This time we're talking about the history of witchcraft. We've got witch hunts, folklore, even modern practitioners.
So yeah, get ready for some history, some chills, maybe even a sprinkle of magic, who knows?
And look, when we say witch, we know it's not just like pointy hats and broomsticks. So let's be honest, those are pretty cool. But there's so much more to it.
Oh, absolutely. But it's interesting, isn't it, how this figure, this witch, has been both completely revered and absolutely reviled throughout history. It's not a simple thing to pin down.
No, not at all. So to really get this witching hour we're diving into, I think we got to start way back. When did the whole witch thing even begin?
We need to go back to those ancient roots, way back when the line between the physical world and the spiritual world, wasn't so clear.
Like it was all kind of a blur, right?
Exactly. Think about those early cultures where someone who knew about herbs or healing rituals or maybe even how to talk to spirits. That wasn't just unusual, that was powerful stuff.
Right, these were the healers, the midwives, the spiritual guides, basically whoever you turn to when things got a little too weird for you.
And that's what's so interesting, that power, that ability to heal or to harm. It created a sense of awe, for sure, but also a good bit of fear.
Okay, so respect the power, got it. But when did things shift? Like when did this view of witches really start to go dark?
Well, as organized religion started to really cement itself, especially in Europe, any practices that fell outside of what they considered acceptable, well, they started to view those with suspicion.
So anything that challenged their power structure.
Exactly. And suddenly, the people who had always been respected, particularly women who were practicing folk magic or herbal medicine, they were labeled as dangerous, as witches who were in league with the devil, you see.
So it became less about what they were actually doing and more about who had the power.
Exactly. And this fear, mixed with a society that was constantly changing who had the power, well, it created the perfect conditions for one of the darkest chapters in human history.
You're talking about the witch hunts, right?
Yes. And listener, get ready, because this is where things get really, really unsettling.
Yeah, this is heavy stuff. We're talking about a period driven by religious extremism, paranoia, and, honestly, a whole lot of misogyny.
The Salem witch trials back in 1692, that's a chilling example. And it wasn't the only one, but they were condemning people based on what they called spectral evidence.
Spectral evidence? What even is that?
Basically, dreams and visions, that's all it took.
Wow. It's terrifying how quickly fear and suspicion can, completely warp even basic human instincts, Compassion, reason, all gone.
It's true. And sadly, Salem was not an isolated incident at all. To really understand this widespread panic, we have to look at things like the Malleus Maleficarum, which was basically a witch hunting manual. And it was incredibly influential in Europe during this period.
So this wasn't just some local thing. It was happening everywhere, fueled by fear and this need to control anyone different.
It's a scary thought, isn't it? How easily fear can be used as a weapon.
And how dangerous it is when the people in charge are the ones wielding it.
Oh yeah, the Malleus Maleficarum, this wasn't just some random book. It actually gave legitimacy to going after anyone accused of witchcraft. And it even provided this whole framework for how to identify and then, well, eliminate so-called witches. And let me tell you, the impact was truly devastating. It's chilling. Just a reminder of how easily fear can be manipulated and how dangerous it gets when people in power use that fear for their own purposes.
100%. And to really get a handle on how complex this fear was, we have to look at how witches were shown, not just in historical accounts, but also in folklore and pop culture.
Okay, so we're shifting gears a little bit. Less history, more. Double toil and trouble. Because, from those old myths to modern movies, witches definitely know how to grab our attention.
It's true. Take Baba Yaga, for example, from Slavic folklore. She's often portrayed as this hag-like figure, and get this, she lives in a hut that stands on chicken legs.
A hut on chicken legs. But here's the thing about Baba Yaga. She's not all good or all bad. She's complex. She embodies that whole ambiguous thing that witches often represent. They can be scary, but also helpful. It just depends who's asking.
It's like that whole duality thing, right? We see it in other cultures, too. Think of the Brujas from Latin American folklore. These figures, often seen as super alluring but also super dangerous. They might seduce you or they might steal your soul, all depending on how they're feeling that day.
Exactly.
Right.
It's like witches and folklore represent this raw, untamed power, something that can be good or bad, but definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, not your average fairy godmother, that's for sure. But even those scary witches often have a mischievous side, right? Sometimes even empowering.
Definitely. And that's part of why the archetype has stuck around for so long. But speaking of sticking around, we can't forget about all those iconic witches in pop culture.
Oh, right. From that creepy found footage style of the Blair Witch Project to the spellbinding teenagers in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. And then you have the glamorous, powerful witches in American Horror Story. We clearly can't get enough.
And you know what's interesting? Modern portrayals, especially in the shows you mentioned, they often reclaim the image of the witch and turn her into this symbol of female empowerment.
It's like the witch went from being feared and ostracized to this person who embraces her power, challenges the rules, and basically says, hey, this is me, deal with it.
Yeah, you got it. And that shift definitely reflects how attitudes towards women have been changing in society. And there's also a growing interest in magic and spirituality, especially outside of those traditional religions.
Which brings us to those modern witchcraft practices like
Hmm.
Wicca and paganism. But we're not talking about those stereotypical witches with cauldrons, are we?
Not really. Modern witchcraft takes inspiration from older traditions, sure. But it's really more about connecting with nature, learning how to harness your own energy, and finding your own spiritual path outside of any established doctrines.
So less about, transforming your ex into a toad and more about personal growth and empowerment.
You got it. It's about finding that sense of inner harmony and harmony with the natural world. Although, I have to admit, some practitioners might tell you that a well-placed protection spell never hurts anyone.
Right. I mean, who hasn't wanted to ward off a little negativity every now and then? But seriously, talking to a practicing witch really opened my eyes to how diverse these practices really are.
It's not one size fits all, that's for sure. There's a huge emphasis on personal experience and finding ways to connect with that ancient wisdom that still resonates in our modern world. Think meditation, herbalism, moon rituals. It's all about tuning into those natural rhythms.
And you can't forget about the strong sense of community that thrives in those groups. It's about finding your people, your tribe, supporting each other, and celebrating shared beliefs. Which, let's be real, we all need that.
So true. That feeling of belonging is so essential. But we can't ignore what's happening right under our noses, or should I say, dancing across our screens on TikTok. Crystals, tarot, astrology, it's everywhere you look.
No kidding. You can't scroll for 2 seconds without seeing someone cleansing their crystals or talking about moon signs. But it's more than just a trend, don't you think?
Definitely. It shows how much people, especially younger generations, are really craving something more. That connection to something ancient and mystical, especially in a world that often feels kind of blah.
Right, it's like they're rediscovering the power of those ancient practices and using them to connect to something bigger than themselves. A way to find meaning and maybe even a little magic in the everyday.
And who can blame them? There's just something alluring about the unknown, tapping into that sense of wonder and mystery that seems to be missing in our modern tech-obsessed world.
It's about taking back control, tapping into something ancient and powerful within. But while some people are embracing their inner witch, others still approach all of this with a healthy dose of skepticism, maybe even a little fear.
Totally understandable. The unknown isn't always rainbows and butterflies. There are some dark corners, whispers of practices that are best left alone, and stories that are honestly chilling for a reason.
And that, my friend, is the perfect way to transition to the final chapter of our deep dive, the dark side of the occult, ready to explore those shadows. It's like we've been looking at how witches have gone from feared to empowered. And those practices, like Wicca and astrology, they're having a real moment.
Right. But we also can't forget there's always been this dark side to this whole fascination with the occult.
A side that's both, kind of terrifying, but also super intriguing.
It's that whisper of rituals and ancient forces and the idea that if you mess with powers you don't understand, well, there might be consequences.
When it comes to those darker aspects, we have to talk about places like Boleskine House. It's got this eerie history, rumors of dark rituals. It's basically legendary at this point.
Boleskine House is so interesting. It's not just about those rituals supposedly carried out by its most notorious resident, Aleister Crowley. It's more like the place itself has become a symbol,
A symbol of what?
of that pull, that draw that the occult has for people. People who are looking for a real tangible connection to something beyond themselves.
You're saying it's like the house itself is somehow charged.
Maybe. Whether you believe it or not, you can't deny there's something unsettling about that place.
No, absolutely. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. And that's before we even get into those listener stories about their own unexplained encounters.
Oh, man. Those were something else. Even though you always got to approach those with some healthy skepticism, right? Some of them were really unsettling, like that one listener who found those symbols carved into their doorframe.
Right? And then they found out those were ancient protection symbols. Spooky coincidence. Or something more.
Makes you wonder about the stories behind those symbols. Who put them there and why?
Totally. And then you had those stories about objects that seemed to have like this energy about them, like antique mirrors showing glimpses of other realms, or those creepy family heirlooms with a dark past.
Oh, yeah, the stories that always get me. The idea that an object can hold on to energy, memories, intentions. It's primal, isn't it? Like some things are better left alone.
100%. And it all comes back to that pull of the unknown. We crave knowledge, we want answers, but there's a part of us that's also drawn to the mystery. The possibility that there are things out there we'll never understand.
Exactly. And that's what we have to remember, especially after this deep dive into the witching hour. We have to approach all this, the history, the folklore, the practices, even the dark stuff, with both curiosity and respect.
An open mind goes a long way too.
For sure. Because whether you're looking for empowerment, a spiritual connection, or even just a good scare, this world of witches and witchcraft, it gives us a peek into something bigger.
It shows us how powerful belief can be, how many mysteries are still out there, and how the best stories often blur the lines between what's real and what we only wish were real.
So next time you hear a story about a witch, or a rumor of magic, or maybe something a little darker, remember you're tapping into a current of human experience that goes back centuries. It's something that still fascinates us, frightens us, and yeah, even inspires us.
And who knows, maybe it'll even spark a little magic of your own.